What happens when a boy in a world where martial artists can survive nuclear blasts activates a system that cannot even measure his first punch? The answer begins with Jiang Ye standing in front of a silver punch tester while 30 classmates wait to see whether he is finally going to stop pretending he belongs near the top of the class. Outside Ann City No. 3 High School, snow is burying the campus. Inside, the students are sweating through their uniforms, holding horse stances until their legs shake. Their teacher walks between them in a white martial arts uniform, correcting shoulders and humiliating anyone who thinks winter break was an excuse to stop training. Second semester of your second year, she says, less than a year and a half before the entrance examination. If you are still below minor success, do not ask whether the exam is unfair. Ask whether you are serious. Then she stops beside Jiang Ye. He improved during the break. His star martial cultivation technique is almost at minor success. The room turns toward him. Jiang Ye looks calm, but he knows what they see. A handsome, regular class student with ordinary talent, ordinary resources, and no reason to be standing this close to the top 10. His friend Zhang Nu leans over. If your talent were better, you would already be at great success. Jiang Ye keeps his eyes forward. Talent decides the starting line. It does not decide whether I keep moving. Zhang Nu laughs. You say that like hard work is a secret technique. For us, it is. That is the entire problem in one exchange. This is a world where martial artists can cross nuclear fire, move mountains, and break aerospace carriers with their bare hands. The planet connected to the starry sky centuries ago, and the people who inherited star martial arts turned strength into the foundation of civilization. The weak do not just lose competitions here. They are exposed to the shadow disaster, a threat that claims nearly 10 million ordinary lives every year. Jiang Ye is not training because he wants a medal. He is training because he wants his family to survive the world outside the classroom. For years, he has trained with nothing but low talent and stubbornness. Until a few days ago, when a panel appeared in front of his eyes. Low martial achievement system, unactivated. Jiang Ye stares at the words. Then he remembers his previous life. He is a transmigrator. His golden finger has finally arrived, more than a decade late, and it has brought a system designed for low martial arts. In this world, that is almost a joke. Some martial artists walk out of weapons tests without a scratch. Some reshape landscapes. Some can erase a city's defenses with one attack. Jiang Ye looks at his panel and thinks, you waited this long to arrive, and you still brought the wrong system? The system does not defend itself. So Jiang Ye goes back to training. The assessment starts. One student after another steps up to the machine. Wen Yue Hui, 351 kilograms. Li Jichao, 475. The numbers are not just numbers. They are admission chances, family expectations, and the ranking everyone pretends not to care about. Then the teacher looks at Jiang Ye. Your turn. He walks to the tester. His feet lock into the ground. His spine rolls through the movement. Every day of the winter break is packed into one punch. He strikes. The display flickers. 245 kilograms. Almost minor success. Not enough to shock the class. Enough to prove he has moved. Jiang Ye takes one step back. The system wakes up. Host punch strength detected. Grounded martial achievement system activating. He freezes. Then a warning appears. Your punch strength has reached the system's upper limit. You have surpassed 90% of the world's population. For half a second, Jiang Ye expects something legendary. Instead, the system congratulates him for being stronger than ordinary civilians. In a world of monsters, his first achievement is barely respectable. Jiang Ye looks at the message again. That is your limit? The panel answers with another line. Conducting strength assessment. The class sees only a boy standing beside a punch machine. They do not see the panel. They do not know that the weakest-looking system in the strongest world has just found its first user. Jiang Ye steps back into line. He does not need a perfect talent overnight. He needs one achievement, then another. And if the system cannot measure the next punch, he will hit hard enough to force it to try. The rest of the assessment is less dramatic, but more important. Speed, endurance, reaction time. Jiang Ye is never first, yet he refuses to give the class a clean reason to dismiss him. When the ranking appears, he is 11th. The 10th place student reads the list, looks at Jiang Ye, and laughs. Close enough to celebrate, not close enough to qualify. Jiang Ye looks at the 10 names above him. How many points separate us? Why? So I know how much work you saved for me. The laughter dies. His teacher stops beside the list.
11th is not safe. I know. You are not allowed to be satisfied because the gap became smaller. I am not satisfied. Good.
Do not waste the feeling. That night, Jiang Ye opens the star martial cultivation technique and stops treating it like a set of movements. He studies where the force enters the foot, how the waist transfers it, and why the wrist turns at the final instant. He repeats the same punch until his knuckles ache. The next one is worse. He changes his breathing. The next one is cleaner. The panel flashes. Achievement progress increased. Jiang Ye smiles. So you do know the difference. 3 nights later, the teacher asks the class to demonstrate the foundation movement. Jiang Ye completes it once. Again, he repeats it. Again. The third repetition looks identical, but the force arrives differently. The teacher's eyes narrow. You changed the transfer. The original path was wasting power through the waist. One student scoffs. You are explaining it like a teacher now. Jiang Ye turns toward him. Then copy it correctly. The student tries. His balance collapses halfway through the motion. The room goes quiet. Achievement complete. Technique comprehension. Reward, comprehension aptitude increased. It is not a divine inheritance. It is the ability to understand what he is already doing. In Jiang Ye's hands, that is enough to become dangerous. At home, his family notices the change before the school does. His mother sees the worn practice clothes. His father sees how carefully Jiang Ye counts every resource. You are training too much, his father says. I am training efficiently. That is not the same thing. I am not training to win one exam. I am training so I can still come home after the exam. The room falls quiet. His family knows about the shadow disaster. They know what happens to ordinary people who cannot protect themselves. They do not know about the system, but they understand why Jiang Ye refuses to stop. The first major change comes when his martial bone begins to awaken. The medical scan shows an unusual rearrangement in his energy circulation. The doctor studies the result, then studies Jiang Ye. You have been using a technique your current body should not be able to sustain. Can it be controlled? Possibly. Then tell me how. The transformation begins that night. Jiang Ye sits on the training mat while energy pushes through his frame and exposes every weak place in his foundation. He nearly loses control, catches the breathing rhythm, and forces the energy back into a stable loop. When the process settles, the system appears. Achievement complete. Martial bone awakening. Foundation strengthened. Jiang Ye stands and throws one punch at the practice target. It moves farther than it should. He looks at the distance. So the body remembers what the mind has not tested yet. The next morning, his classmates discover that he is harder to move. He is not suddenly the strongest student. He is simply no longer easy to disrupt. That is how Jiang Ye rises, not through one miracle, but through advantages that keep appearing at the exact moment a stronger student assumes the fight is already decided. Money becomes the next problem. Martial arts needs resources, and his family cannot pay for every recovery treatment, instructor, and certification. Jiang Ye starts tutoring weaker students. One of them asks, "How much do I owe you?" Pass the next assessment. That is not payment. It is if you stop wasting your family's money on the wrong practice. The student follows his advice and improves. Jiang Ye earns money, but the system also recognizes the achievement. Achievement complete. Guide a fellow practitioner. The reward is modest. The lesson is not. A technique becomes stronger when its principles can be explained. Then, Jiang Ye enters the first layer of the martial arts celestial ladder. It looks like a staircase, but it behaves like a judgment. The pressure arrives before he takes his second step. His muscles become heavy. His breathing shortens, and every flaw in his foundation becomes impossible to hide. The panel gives him one instruction. Achievement condition, continue forward. Jiang Ye looks at the message. That is the entire instruction? The system remains silent. He takes another step. The ladder punishes brute force. When Jiang Ye pushes harder, the pressure doubles. When he relaxes his shoulders and lets the ground support him, the path becomes lighter. The same correction from his first classroom returns at the moment he needs it. Do not fight the floor. Let the floor support you. Jiang Ye adjusts his stance and continues. He reaches the end of the first layer, earns a new title, and receives a reward that confirms the ladder is connected to the deeper structure of martial arts. Punch strength will not be enough forever. He needs a path. Zhao Qingli is the first person at school to understand that he is no longer merely catching up. She is talented, disciplined, and far ahead of him when they begin sparring. She does not flatter him, and she does not let him use hard work as an excuse for poor technique. After one practice match, she says, "You are watching my hands. Where should I watch? My shoulders." They spar again. Jiang Ye lasts longer. She still wins. He writes down why. Zhao Qingli sees the notes. "You were recording how I beat you? How you beat me today. You think it will be different next time?" It has to be. She almost smiles. Their rivalry gives the school arc a second engine. Every time Jiang Ye advances, Zhao Qingli answers with a stronger technique. Every time she exposes a weakness, he returns with a correction instead of an excuse. Then, the shadow race appears near a civilian route. The students are told to stay behind the barrier while the senior fighters investigate. The plan lasts less than a minute before the breach changes direction and begins moving toward a shelter. "Stay back!" Jiang Ye watches civilians trapped near the opening. "If we stay here, the barrier is the only thing between them and the enemy. You are a student." "Then watch closely." He moves. Jiang Ye does not try to overpower the shadow race head-on. He reads the distortion, tracks the quiet places where the environment is too still, and forces the hidden attacker into the open. He holds the position until the senior team arrives. The team leader reprimands him afterward. "You were told to observe. I observed that the plan was failing. You could have been hurt. So could everyone behind us." The system records a defensive achievement. The bigger reward is that people outside the school have now seen what Jiang Ye does when no ranking is available to protect him. The shadow race is no longer background lore. It is waiting for him. The next stage is star sky energy refinement. Jiang Ye's body can hold more power, but raw power is useless if the energy cannot be controlled. His teacher gives the class a warning. Do not chase speed. A foundation built too quickly will break under serious pressure. Jiang Ye hears the warning and takes it seriously. He trains slower, but each movement becomes more exact. His new techniques begin appearing one at a time. Flowing light for transitions, gale step for distance, and thunder fire for finishing pressure. Lin Xuan becomes the first rival who openly questions the pace of his rise. "You are moving too fast for someone with your background. Maybe your estimate was wrong?" Lin Xuan smiles. "Then I will correct it personally." Their match is built around expectation. Lin Xuan expects Jiang Ye to answer power with power. Jiang Ye gives him a change of tempo instead. The first strike is blocked. "That is all?" The second arrives from a different angle. "You answered too soon." The 8 forms thunder sound fist breaks the rhythm of the defense. Lin Xuan is forced to admit that Jiang Ye's strength is not a temporary boost. It is a growing system of answers. When a disappearance connected to divine concealment occurs, raw strength stops being enough. Jiang Ye studies life magnetism and energy residue. He searches for places where the world is too quiet, instead of looking for a visible target. That investigation leads him to a saintess being hunted by several factions. "Why did you come here?" she asks. "Because you were being hunted. And if I do not want to be saved, then I will ask who is hunting you and decide whether they are worse company than I am." She does not trust him immediately. Good. Jiang Ye does not need another follower who obeys without thinking. They form a formal fantasy agreement based on mutual protection, and the system records a new achievement. The relationship gives him information, but it also makes him visible to organizations that were previously watching from a distance. At the second layer of the celestial ladder, Jiang Ye faces 12 apparent routes. 10 promise power, 2 promise understanding. He chooses neither at first. He sits down and waits. The doors change. The route with the biggest reward reveals a flaw. The easiest path becomes the most dangerous. Jiang Ye finally understands the test. The ladder is not asking which reward he wants. It is asking whether he will trade his future for a reward that looks impressive now. He enters the weakest path. The trial becomes harder immediately. That is how he passes. The crown of supervision creates a different kind of problem. Several factions are trying to reach the same artifact, and every group has a map designed to make the others move first. Jiang Ye's team wants him to take the front route. The front route is too obvious, he says. That is why they will defend it. No, that is why they want us to think they will defend it. He divides the team. One unit creates the appearance of a direct assault. Another protects the retreat. Jiang Ye takes the smallest group through a corridor with no guards. The absence of guards is the trap. The corridor stretches every time they approach the door. The crown is already changing their perception. We are walking in circles. Jiang Ye touches the floor. The corridor is moving around us. He follows the pressure in the ground, reaches the inner chamber, and ignores the guards around the crown. Instead, he attacks the control formation. The enemy commander shouts, "You are leaving the artifact behind!" Jiang Ye turns. "No, I am making sure you cannot use it." The formation breaks. The false signals disappear. Rival teams realize they have been fighting over the wrong targets, and the fortress defense collapses without Jiang Ye needing to defeat everyone inside it. That is the first time the larger factions stop treating him as a promising student and start treating him as a strategist. The monthly exam makes the change public. The teacher reads the rankings once, then again. Jiang Ye is first. First in the regular class? Someone asks. First in the grade. The room goes silent. Jiang Ye does not celebrate. He looks at the next assessment. 1,000 contenders, multiple environments, changing rules, and competitors who have trained specifically to counter him. The first rival relies on a fixed defensive stance. Jiang Ye attacks the ground instead of the defense. The second relies on speed. Jiang Ye uses Gale Step to shrink the arena until speed becomes a straight line. The third carries a star weapon. "I heard you only win with borrowed tricks," the rival says. Jiang Ye raises the weapon. "Then stop me before I use one." The match ends before the audience finishes reacting. The system records 1,000 victory achievement, but Jiang Ye has earned something more valuable, a complete combat language. A retreat can be an entrance. A pause can be an attack. A basic punch can be a trap. The newborn tournament brings together the strongest young fighters from several regions. Jiang Ye arrives as an unknown from West Mountain Province. The announcer reads his name without enthusiasm. Jiang Ye. The crowd barely reacts. His first opponent does. "I will give you one chance to admit defeat." Jiang Ye adjusts his equipment. "You should give yourself one chance to stop talking." The opponent charges. Jiang Ye sidesteps, studies the cracked floor, and uses the damaged arena to change his angle. The second charge is redirected. The third never begins. The crowd erupts. Shen Changxi is different. Her sword technique attacks the place where an opponent is about to stand. She does not chase Jiang Ye. She predicts him. "Your movement is difficult to follow because you change your decision halfway through," she says. That sounds like a compliment. It is a warning. The match begins, and every reasonable response leads to another threat. Jiang Ye tries speed. She intercepts. He tries rhythm. She breaks the timing. He tries a direct approach. She turns the boundary against him. For the first time in the tournament, Jiang Ye has no comfortable answer. So he becomes predictable. He repeats the same entry 3 times, allowing Shen Changxi to build a perfect response. On the 4th entry, he does not attack. The empty decision becomes the opening. Shen Changxi's sword moves toward a future that no longer exists. Jiang Ye steps inside the line and wins. The final rounds push him to great success in the star martial cultivation technique. The crowd expects the established geniuses to reclaim the hierarchy. Jiang Ye breaks through in the middle of the pressure. "You advanced now?" an opponent asks. The timing was acceptable. He wins the championship. The victory brings university invitations, family contracts, resources, and people who want to own the story before Jiang Ye becomes too powerful to influence. One representative offers protection. "From whom?" Jiang Ye asks. "The people who dislike your rise." "And who protects me from the people offering the protection?" He chooses White Dragon University because it offers knowledge without demanding ownership of his future. The university is the first place where his old achievements become a starting point. Some students have fought across planets. Others know advanced star professions and have survived missions that would have been impossible for Ann City school teams. An instructor asks every newcomer to demonstrate one technique. Jiang Ye chooses a basic movement. The students laugh. "Why that technique?" the instructor asks. "Because it contains the problem I am currently trying to solve. Not the strongest technique, you know?" The strongest technique I know is not the one I need right now. The instructor watches him repeat the movement. "You came here to learn. I came here to become harder to defeat. Those are not always the same thing. Then I will learn the difference." University training introduces star professional missions, energy refinement, formation theory, and advanced combat simulations. Jiang Ye does not dominate every class. He struggles whenever the correct answer cannot be reached through force. That is why the Shadow Race Star Nest mission matters. The team is told to investigate an old structure and report whether the site is active. The mission leader gives them a map that is incomplete on purpose. Inside the wasteland, the team finds signs of recent activity. The structure is watching them. The first pressure comes from the environment. Distances change, communication fails, and the enemy appears from several directions. "We are surrounded," a student says. "No," Jiang Ye answers. "They are surrounding the wrong position. He has already moved the team's center of gravity." The Shadow Race is attacking the place where the group stood 30 seconds earlier. Jiang Ye identifies their communication signal, uses it to map the surrounding positions, and divides the team into small units. He does not fight every enemy personally. He breaks the enemy's coordination, protects the injured students, and reaches the inheritance chamber before the attackers understand what has happened. The Celestial Tier Inheritance reacts to every candidate, but its response to Jiang Ye is unstable. He has too many overlapping systems inside his body. The achievement rewards, the reconstructed talent, the star martial techniques, and the developing true divine scripture. The chamber demands a single path. Jiang Ye refuses to abandon the team for a faster reward. "If you hesitate, someone else will take it," a teammate shouts. "Then let them try." He secures the escape route first, then enters the trial. The inheritance is not measuring power alone. It is measuring whether his path can carry responsibility. Jiang Ye passes and leads the team out of the nest. Back at the university, an administrator focuses on the reward. Jiang Ye focuses on the missing information. "You knew the site was active," he says to the mission leader. "We suspected." "You sent us anyway?" "The university cannot protect students from every dangerous situation." "True. But it can stop pretending a controlled mission is controlled. The true divine scripture is harder than the inheritance. It is not a technique with a list of movements. It reacts to understanding." Jiang Ye copies the first circulation pattern. The scripture rejects him. He forces more energy into it. The scripture rejects him again. He asks the system for help.
Compatibility is not the primary issue.
Then what is? You could have said that earlier. You did not ask correctly. Jiang Ye returns to the beginning. He studies every turn until he can explain why it exists. His progress is slow, which is exactly why the strongest instructors notice him. Several teachers try to recruit him as a disciple. "Under my guidance, you will advance quickly." "Quickly is not the same as correctly," another instructor says. Jiang Ye interrupts them. "I want a teacher who points out my mistakes without replacing my path with theirs. The room goes silent. He chooses the mentor who gives him the most difficult truth. No teacher can carry him through the final stage. Eventually, Jiang Ye must create something no one else has created. The Genius Cup tests that promise. Every opponent has studied his tournament footage. One has trained to disrupt Gale Step. Another has learned to break Thunder Sound rhythm. A third carries a defensive tool that converts impact into stored force. Jiang Ye prepares with questions instead of a single plan. What happens if my strongest attack is blocked? What happens if my footwork is restricted? What happens if I cannot use the star weapon? What happens if the opponent is stronger and smarter? His matches begin slowly. The crowd assumes he's losing confidence. He is not. He is refusing to reveal his best answer before he knows the question. One opponent traps him inside an area technique. Your speed is gone, the opponent says. Jiang Ye shifts his weight. I still have balance. He turns the restriction into a pivot and ends the match. In the final, an opponent overwhelms him during the opening exchange. You have reached the end of your cleverness. Jiang Ye steadies his breathing. No, I have reached the beginning of my adjustment. He changes the rhythm, forces the stronger fighter to commit, and wins the Genius Cup. The victory gives Jiang Ye a new rank, but the announcement is barely finished before the real problem arrives. His talent reconstruction has been approved. The officials call it an opportunity. Jiang Ye calls it a controlled gamble. The chamber is surrounded by stabilizing formations, medical instruments, and instructors who all look calm in the way people look calm when the risk belongs to somebody else. One of them says, if the reconstruction becomes unstable, stop immediately. What counts as unstable? Jiang Ye asks. When continuing is more dangerous than stopping. That is subjective. Exactly. That is why you must decide. Jiang Ye steps inside anyway. The first wave does not feel like power. It feels like his body is being asked to remember every weakness it ever had. His breathing becomes uneven. The energy in his core starts moving faster than his muscles can guide it. The system appears. The instructor shouts, "Stop!" Jiang Ye does not. He remembers the first winter morning at school. The teacher had told him not to fight the floor. Let it support him. He remembers the celestial ladder, where pushing harder had only doubled the pressure. He remembers the 8 forms Thunder Sound Fist, the technique that taught him timing mattered more than force. Instead of forcing the energy forward, he gives it a center. The reconstruction pushes back. Jiang Ye's vision blurs, and the chamber lights stretch into white lines. For 1 second, he is back at the punch tester, staring at a pathetic number while the system congratulates him for surpassing ordinary people. The memory is almost funny. If that was enough to activate you, he mutters, this should be enough to upgrade you. He pulls the energy into a stable loop. The instructors exchange looks. Jiang Ye does not see them. He sees only the path in front of him. The talent reconstruction is not replacing his old foundation. It is asking whether the foundation can carry more weight. He answers by using everything he has learned. The chamber settles. You are stable, the instructor says. Jiang Ye opens his eyes. That is the first good news today. The second is that your talent has reached a level most people will never touch. The second good news is more dangerous. The instructor almost smiles. You are learning. The new talent changes the way Jiang Ye is treated. Before, people called him an exception. Now, they call him a resource. Invitations arrive from noble families, research institutes, and schools that would not have answered his messages a year earlier. One representative offers a private training ground. You will have access to the best facilities in the province. And what do you want? Your future loyalty. That is not a training ground. That is a contract. Another representative offers protection. From whom? Jiang Ye asks. The people who dislike your rise. And who protects me from the people offering the protection? The representative stops smiling. Jiang Ye has finally reached the stage where his biggest danger is no longer being underestimated. It is being understood too well by people who want to use him. That is why White Dragon University matters. It offers access to the starry sky without demanding ownership of his name. Before he leaves, Zhao Qingli meets him near the station. You are really going? The starry sky is not going to come closer by itself. You could stay here and keep winning. That would make me comfortable. You say that like comfort is a trap. For me, it might be. She hands him a small package of supplies. Do not use everything on the first day. You have a lot of confidence in my bad decisions. I have watched you train. Jiang Ye boards the transport with his family's advice, Zhao Qingli's supplies, and a system that has finally run out of beginner rewards. White Dragon University is larger than anything he has known. The buildings are connected by energy bridges. Training grounds are separated by artificial gravity fields. Students from different planets walk through the same corridors, each carrying techniques Jiang Ye has never seen. At the entrance assessment, an instructor asks every newcomer to demonstrate one technique. Jiang Ye chooses a basic movement. The students laugh. The instructor does not. Why that technique? Because it contains the problem I am currently trying to solve. Not the strongest technique you know? The strongest technique I know is not the one I need right now. The instructor watches him repeat the movement. Again. Jiang Ye repeats it. Again. On the fifth attempt, the movement changes. It is still basic, but the force transfer is cleaner. The instructor nods. You came here to learn. I came here to become harder to defeat. Those are not always the same thing. Then I will learn the difference. The difference appears in his first week. Jiang Ye dominates the physical drills, then nearly fails the STAR professional theory exam. He can feel energy through his body, but he cannot explain the behavior of an unfamiliar formation on paper. His classmate sees the score. Champion of the newborn tournament. Defeated by a diagram. Jiang Ye looks at the page. The diagram cheated. It is a diagram. Exactly. It had no right to be that complicated. He stays after class and rebuilds the formation from first principles. The achievement system gives him no shortcut. It gives him progress only when he stops trying to memorize the answer and understands the relationship between the lines. The next morning, he returns the exam. The instructor checks the correction. You solved the wrong problem. Jiang Ye's expression drops. I did? You solved the formation as it should have been built. The question asked, what happens when the builder makes a mistake? Jiang Ye looks at the page again. Then he laughs. So even the mistakes have rules. Now you are ready for the next lesson. That lesson becomes important when Jiang Ye enters the Shadow Race star nest. The mission briefing sounds harmless. Investigate an old structure, confirm whether it is active, and return before the area becomes unstable. Jiang Ye asks, why are we sending students? The mission leader answers, because the university wants experience data. Experience data from what? The leader hesitates. From the site. That answer is incomplete. Jiang Ye can hear it in the pause. Inside the wasteland, the team finds signs of recent activity before they find the structure. A broken marker, a disturbed energy line, footprints that disappear at the edge of the road. One student says, the map says this area is empty. Jiang Ye looks at the trees. The map is lying. The first attack does not come from the front. It comes from everywhere the team stopped looking. Communication fails. Distances shift. The ground seems to tilt even when it is level. We are surrounded, a student says. No, Jiang Ye answers. They are surrounding the wrong position. He has already moved the team's center of gravity. The enemy is attacking where the group stood 30 seconds earlier. Jiang Ye does not rush forward. He listens for the coordination signal hidden beneath the noise. Once he finds it, the battlefield becomes a map. 3 units on the left, 2 behind the ridge, 1 command signal below us. The team leader stares at him. You are sure? No. That is not reassuring. I am sure enough to move. He divides the students into small units. 1 protects the injured. 1 draws attention away from the command signal. Jiang Ye takes the shortest route into the structure. The Shadow Race expects a panic retreat. Instead, the students begin moving with purpose. Every time an enemy group tries to support another, Jiang Ye cuts the route between them. Every time the enemy changes direction, he changes the battlefield first. The mission becomes a series of decisions rather than one giant clash. Protect the student who cannot keep up. Do not chase a retreat into an unknown corridor. Break the signal before attacking the unit. Save the route out before taking the reward. At the center of the nest, the team finds a celestial tier inheritance. The inheritance reacts to every person in the chamber. When Jiang Ye approaches, the entire structure goes silent. It chose you. Not yet. The chamber asks for a single path. Jiang Ye feels the competing systems inside his body. The achievement panel, the reconstructed talent, the star martial techniques, and the true divine scripture that he barely understands. The inheritance tries to force him to abandon all but one. Jiang Ye refuses. If I have to become someone else to use this, he says, then it is not mine. The pressure increases. The team leader shouts, "If you hesitate, another candidate will take it." Jiang Ye keeps his eyes on the inheritance. Then let them try. He secures the escape route first. Only then does he accept the trial. The test is not only about power. It measures whether a martial path can carry responsibility. Jiang Ye survives because he does not treat his teammates as scenery around his reward. When the team returns to the university, an administrator focuses on the inheritance and ignores the hidden risk. Jiang Ye does not. "You knew the nest was active," he says. "We suspected. You sent us anyway. The university cannot protect students from every dangerous situation." True, but it can stop pretending a controlled mission is controlled. The administrator smiles without warmth. "You are becoming difficult. I was difficult before. You simply did not know my name. The true divine scripture is harder than the inheritance. It is not a technique with a list of movements. It reacts to understanding." Jiang Ye copies the first circulation pattern. The scripture rejects him. He forces more energy into it. The scripture rejects him again. He asks the system for help. Compatibility is not the primary issue. Then what is? You could have said that earlier. You did not ask correctly. Jiang Ye stares at the panel. I'm going to pretend that was useful. He returns to the beginning. He studies every turn of the scripture until he can explain why it exists. His progress slows, but the slow work changes his relationship with power. He is no longer collecting techniques. He is learning how techniques are born. That is why instructors begin competing to accept him as a disciple. Under my guidance, you will advance quickly, one says. Quickly is not the same as correctly, another replies. Both of you are trying to recruit him before he understands what he wants, a third says. Jiang Ye interrupts them. I want a teacher who points out my mistakes without replacing my path with theirs. The room goes silent. The teacher he chooses gives him the most difficult truth. No master can carry him through the final stage. Eventually, Jiang Ye must create something no one else has created. The Genius Cup turns that warning into a public test. Every opponent has studied his footage. One has trained to disrupt Gale Step. Another has learned to break Thunder Sound rhythm. A third carries a defensive tool that converts impact into stored force. Jiang Ye prepares with questions instead of a single plan. What happens if the strongest attack is blocked? What happens if footwork is restricted? What happens if the star weapon is unavailable? What happens if the opponent is stronger and smarter? His first match looks slow. The audience assumes he is losing confidence. He is not. He is refusing to reveal his best answer before he knows the question. An opponent traps him inside an area technique. Your speed is gone, the opponent says. Jiang Ye shifts his weight. I still have balance. He turns the restriction into a pivot and ends the match. Another opponent builds a layered defense. Jiang Ye attacks the first layer, then stops. The defender assumes he has failed and releases the stored force. That is the opening Jiang Ye wanted. He steps inside during the transition and finishes the exchange with the basic punch he practiced in the snow. The crowd finally understands the shape of his strength. Jiang Ye is not powerful because every move is spectacular. He is powerful because he remains useful when the spectacular move is unavailable. In the final, the strongest opponent overwhelms him during the opening exchange. You have reached the end of your cleverness. Jiang Ye steadies his breathing. No, I have reached the beginning of my adjustment. He changes the rhythm. Every time the opponent increases force, Jiang Ye changes the angle. Every time the opponent tries to close the fight, Jiang Ye creates distance and resets. The crowd starts cheering for the opponent, then stops when the pattern becomes obvious. Jiang Ye is taking the powerful fighter apart one decision at a time. The final strike is not the biggest attack in the match. It is the first one the opponent did not expect. Jiang Ye wins the Genius Cup. The victory gives him a new rank, but the celebration lasts less than a day. His talent reconstruction has been approved, and the people running the procedure warn him that his old foundation may not survive the upgrade. Stop when continuing becomes more dangerous than stopping. That sounds subjective. It is. That is why you must decide. Jiang Ye enters the chamber. The reconstruction accelerates, his energy becomes unstable, and the system flashes warnings without offering a reward. For once, the panel cannot solve the problem. Jiang Ye uses the breathing rhythm from the first classroom, the circulation from the star martial technique, and the center created through the true divine scripture. The entire path he built from low talent becomes the support for his new talent. The chamber settles. You are stable, the instructor says. That is the first good news today. The second is that your talent has reached a level most people will never touch. The second good news is more dangerous. The clues about Jiang Ye's senior sister lead him to an upper B opportunity. He does not want it only for power. He wants the information attached to it. Zhao Qingli asks, if the opportunity did not involve your senior sister, would you still take it? Probably. That was fast. A strong opportunity is still a strong opportunity. The mission leads to Zhuhua, a faction conflict, and a loss Jiang Ye cannot undo. The story does not turn the moment into spectacle. It changes the way he thinks about progress. He can arrive stronger than before and still arrive too late. That truth follows him into the third break and the fifth layer of the martial arts celestial ladder. The ladder now presents techniques that look complete. Each one is powerful enough to tempt a talented martial artist into abandoning their own path. Jiang Ye refuses. He passes by understanding the principles behind the techniques and discarding their surface forms. The ladder grants him an immortal monument and recognizes him as a martial arts ancestor. From the outside, it looks like the perfect ending. Then, Jiang Ye enters the path of creation. The Cold Sun Dojo reacts to his intention. He tries to combine the Great Sun Spear technique with the Cold Sun Spear technique, but ice and fire turn chaotic instead of becoming one style. Years pass inside the trial. His old techniques disappear from his memory. Jiang Ye picks up the spear and realizes he no longer knows how to use it. I cannot wield the spear anymore. For the first time in years, fear enters his eyes. The creation path is a point of no return. If he fails, he may lose the foundation that brought him here. He thinks about his senior sister waiting outside. Then he grips the spear again. No, I have to get out. I have to create my own path. The inner world changes. Jiang Ye finds himself in a room of comfort and beauty, a symbolic place where he can stop striving. He allows himself to experience the peace. Then the scene changes. The beautiful figures become pale bone silhouettes. The comfort was never false, but it was never permanent either. Jiang Ye finally understands the contradiction. Beauty matters because life is temporary. Emptiness is not the same as meaninglessness. He does not have to be controlled by desire, and he does not have to fear the end so much that he becomes unable to enjoy anything. The Cold Sun Dojo fills with spring color and pale bone shapes. Images of Chen Zilu, Zhao Qingli, and Yun Qinger appear, then fade into the same impermanent forms. Jiang Ye raises the spear. I can see beauty without losing myself. He thrusts. I can see emptiness without losing my heart. Ice and fire merge. The inner world shakes apart. The Great Sun and Cold Sun techniques return to his memory, but they no longer control his identity. They are ingredients now. Jiang Ye names the new technique Lotion Spear. The system finally responds. Creation technique completed. It is the smallest system message in the entire story. It is also the most important. The moment lasts only a few seconds, but Jiang Ye feels the weight of every earlier failure inside it. The first time he trained, he was trying to imitate people who were born ahead of him. The first time he entered the ranking, he was trying to prove that low talent did not mean low potential. The first time he activated the system, he was angry that the reward looked too small. Now the system has nothing left to hand him. The technique is not a bonus. It is not a random drop. It is the answer he found after the trial stripped away every borrowed answer. Jiang Ye looks down at his hands. So that is what my path feels like. The dojo does not answer. It is already dissolving around him. The ice melts without water. The fire fades without smoke. The pale silhouettes disappear one by one, leaving only the long spear in his grip. For a moment, Jiang Ye is tempted to test the technique immediately. He wants to see how much stronger it is than the Great Sun Spear technique. He wants a number, a rank, a clear comparison. Then he stops himself. The entire point of the trial was to stop living by other people's measurements. The test is over, he says. I do not need to keep proving it to the room. The room collapses. Jiang Ye wakes on the martial arts celestial ladder, but the outside world has barely moved. The time inside the creation path has stretched across years, while the real world has waited for a few breaths. Chen Zilu is standing outside the assessment boundary. You are awake. Jiang Ye looks at her. How long? A few minutes. That is not what I asked. I know. He turns toward the golden stele rising from the ladder. The words martial arts ancestor appear across its surface. The system calculates rewards, but Zhang Yao is watching the new technique settle into his body. Chen Zilu studies his expression. Did you pass? I created something. That was not the question. It is the answer that matters. She notices the change in his posture first. Jiang Ye is standing more loosely, but the looseness is not weakness. It is the absence of wasted tension. What did you create? Jiang Ye raises the spear. Lu Ocean's spear. What does it do? Ask me after I use it. That sounds dangerous. Everything interesting has been so far. The system begins listing rewards. Jiang Ye reads the first 3 lines, then closes the panel. Chen Zilu blinks. You are ignoring the reward calculation? No. I am refusing to let the reward become the point. The statement would have sounded impossible in the first chapter. Jiang Ye once measured every improvement against a ranking, every reward against a stronger student, every failure against the distance he still had to cross. Now, the system is still useful, but it is no longer the author of his identity. That distinction is what separates Jiang Ye from the people who only grow when an artifact tells them to. Outside the ladder, the consequences arrive immediately. The instructors feel the change in his intent. The pressure around the steel shifts. A technique has been born, and the Starry Sky Network registers it as an abnormal event. Far away, several organizations receive the same notice. An unknown young martial artist has completed a creation path trial. One faction assumes it is a mistake. Another assumes it is an inheritance. A third begins searching for Jiang Ye before he can leave the university grounds. Jiang Ye knows none of this yet. He only knows that his senior sister is still waiting, the shadow disaster is still moving, and the next rung of the ladder is already visible. Chen Zilu asks, Are you going to rest? Jiang Ye looks at the next rung. For a minute. That was not the answer I expected. I am growing. You are finally admitting rest. Is useful. Do not ruin the moment. He closes his eyes, takes one controlled breath, and opens them again. The next trial begins. Jiang Ye wakes on the martial arts celestial ladder. A golden steel rises before him. Martial arts ancestor. The system calculates the rewards. Jiang Ye looks at the panel, then at the steel. You can calculate the rewards. The system waits. I will decide what they mean. The low martial system brought him from an 11th place classroom ranking to the edge of the starry sky. It recorded every achievement, exposed every limit, and gave him tools to keep climbing. But it could not create the Lotian spear. That came from Jiang Ye himself. The shadow disaster is still waiting. The starry sky factions are still moving. The secrets surrounding his senior sister are still unfinished. Jiang Ye steps onto the next rung of the ladder.